Okay, great. Welcome to Beyond the Shift with Anu and Shikha, a space for honest conversations about how we grow, change, and make sense of the shifts that life throws at us. Hi, I'm Shikha, and I'm here with my co host Anu.
Hello. In each episode of our podcast, we explore the moments that shape us at work, at home, and within ourselves. We question what we've been taught, unpack what's not working anymore, and reflect on what it really takes to evolve.
And you'll hear some real stories, practical insights, and the uncomfortable questions we're all thinking but rarely saying out loud.
Yeah. So if you're navigating change, rethinking old beliefs, or simply trying to grow with just a little more clarity, then this space is for you.
And if you're a parent like me who's quietly wondering, am I raising my child right? Or am I just repeating what I was taught? Then this conversation is for you. Today we have Stephen and Nancy for our first podcast of 2026 in this new format. And Stephen Shapiro and Nancy Shapiro Rapport, a brother sister team who has the experience of a combined experience of over 68 years as public school educators. And once they retired, they knew there was something more they wanted to give back to the society, especially to support the kids and families. And turning that energy into helping parents raise emotionally healthy children in tight knit families, they designed a system for parents to get clear on the values you want to instill in your children. So they came up with an initiative, they call it Our Family Culture. And our family culture describes values as behaviors and provides families with simple, meaningful ways to practice their selected values each week. So, Stephen and Nancy, welcome to Beyond the Shift with Anu and Shika. And thank you so much for taking out the time and being here with us today. I'll open it for your any opening comments that you might have before we rattle you up. Yeah.
I have one for you, Shika, and thank you so much for having us. We were really excited to be with you today. So one of the things you said in the introduction that you said, Shika, was I am always wondering, am I doing this right?
Oh, yeah.
And and I want to give a little bit of ease around the word right
Mm,
because what we're going to talk about today when we talk with you about our family culture is not about right and wrong at
mm,
all. It's about intention and it's about clarity. And so I would venture to say there's not a right way to do things when you're parenting and a wrong way other than the egregious things that we would call right or wrong, but
right.
there is a softness around it that we're trying to help parents get really clear about and so that they can raise the type of family that they envision having.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we would also acknowledge that this is a really difficult time to raise children. The world has gotten very complex,
Yeah.
and the generations ago it was simpler. There wasn't the competition from technology and social media. Communities were oftentimes closer knit and had common values that were being reinforced across a community.
Right.
And now a lot of parents feel like they're really out on their own. And
Right.
what Nancy and I have realized that if parents don't have clarity and don't have a plan, their kids may turn out quite different than they had hoped they would. And we are trying to help prevent that by giving them the strength and the clarity and the practice to raise the kind of kids that they will be really proud of.
Yeah. No, I really like the word Nancy used, intention, because
Mhm.
it's what you intend your family, your children to be. And so you work towards that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I think what we realized is that by creating a system of what we'll talk about, which are the behaviors, the values identified as behaviors, we call them fundamentals.
Right.
That if when people have the opportunity to get really clear with themselves and with their parenting partner, if they're parenting with a partner, when they
Mhm.
get really clear about what they want those
Right.
fundamentals for their family to be, then
Mm.
they can be intentional.
Yeah.
But without that intention, you sort of parent by default.
By
And
default.
we'd rather have people parent by design.
Yeah. So well said. Yeah.
I mean, before we go ahead, I mean, Shika did introduce you and how our family culture came about. But tell us a little more about your journey. What prompted you to start this, and what prompted you to call it our family culture?
Right.
Well, Nancy and I each worked 34 years as public school educators. I was a high school teacher primarily, and Nancy was a middle school counselor. And over the course of their 34-year careers, we really witnessed a change in kids and families. We saw rising levels of youth anxiety, depression, loneliness, uh, hopelessness. We saw parents who were confused and struggling and didn't know exactly how they should do this well. And when we left our careers, we recognized that there was a problem that we needed to address. We felt like we had something to contribute. And what we observed when we watched families, and because some kids were really struggling, but some kids were doing great,
Yeah.
and some parents were doing great. And what we observed was that the parents and kids who were doing great tended to come from families that had some clarity about what they were about.
Yeah.
And they weren't all the same kind of families. Some of them might have been religious families who had really clear religious values, and some
Yeah.
of them might have been military families that had really clear values that they learned through their military training. And some of them were artsy families that were really creative and their whole family was centered on their creative expression.
Mm.
But they had some clarity. And the families, which was actually most families, were just sort of didn't have that kind of clarity and were just limping along doing their best. And so we realized that by helping families build intentional family culture, every family could have clarity. And you didn't have to have that prepackaged. And so the family culture piece was really clearly important in terms of helping parents get straight about what was important and practice it as opposed to just reacting to their own past.
Wow. Right.
Right. And there's this one question that comes into my mind is, about how you use the word family, while you are aligning all your thoughts with parents, right? So, what I was thinking was, the word identity. Identity, each family member has an identity of their own, the parents, the individual partners, and the children themselves. So, when we say family, are we associating any additional identity with this unit as a whole?
I think the way we see it is that your family is kind of your home base, right? It's where you
Yeah.
learn, where you begin to learn about the world and you begin to learn about how you interact with other people. And so the reason we wanted to focus on the family is because oftentimes I think for parents it feels like they're you have your child and then it's like good luck out there,
Yeah.
do your best.
Yeah.
You have some books about what to expect that first year and what how to do this and how to.
Mm.
We are not a how-to. We
Yeah.
are a who are we?
Right.
Because there's a lot of information out there about how to um, have kids and take care of them. There's not a lot of books, and there's a lot of parenting books out there,
Yeah.
but there's not a lot of books about creating a family culture
Culture.
because every group that you participate in has its own culture, and
Yeah.
families are no different. And so when kids have the opportunity to have a really secure and clear family culture based on certain fundamentals that you practice together in small, simple ways, but repeatedly over time, then kids know who they are and won't have to question, should my friends are stealing something from the store, should I do that too? It's like, we
Yeah.
don't do that. We
Yeah.
do the right thing. In our family, we do the right thing. We
Right.
don't do that.
Yeah, I think what you said earlier, it's like by design. So a lot of parents, I think, know that, okay, I don't want my child to lie or steal or something. But how do I get my child to kind of, inherit or, incorporate that value system is where most of us get lost. And which is where you guys come in, and, the work that you're doing and the design of it, I would say, is phenomenal. So thank you for doing that. And we'll sort of ask more pointed questions as we go along. And Nancy, you took my word. I was trying to keep it a secret until a little later. But you said, you kind of revealed it, the word fundamentals. You call it the fundamentals of a
Yeah.
family, of a unit.
Yeah.
And we have gone ahead and taken liberty and, chosen 5 fundamentals, because you have a lot we possibly cannot cover. We'll need a year, I think, of podcasting every month if we want to cover everything. But we've chosen 5, so we'll, focus on those 5, and then, take it from there. So my first,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
and could I just say that we have about 45 fundamentals that
Yeah.
families choose from. So when families
Wow.
join our family culture, when you sign up and you subscribe to our family culture,
Hmm.
the first step you take is you choose which fundamentals are most important to you.
Yeah, yeah,
So most families choose about 15 of the 45. They're all really good.
yeah,
They're all
yeah,
they're
yeah.
valuable. But the question for families is, and for parents is, which of these 15 are really,
Hmm.
really important?
Yeah,
Which do you feel are essential? Which ones, if your child lives these out, will make you feel really proud and really happy? And
right.
so the 5 that we're going to talk about are just 5 amongst the 45 that parents might choose.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
if they choose them, then these will be things that they'll get to practice and focus with their family
right.
on.
Certainly. And we may have actually not done justice by picking up just 5, by any means, but, then we'll open the floor to and give your website as a link so that, people can reach out to you more and ask questions if they like. So I want to
And
begin
it's
with the,
interesting, Shika.
yeah,
Shika has chosen the 5. Okay, so it's interesting what made her choose these
yeah,
specific
what made her
5.
choose. So for all you know, this is a very, very selfish, personally vested conversation. So, okay, help me solve my problems, and, we'll get the rest of it later. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so my first one is be yourself, authenticity over performance. And I'll explain, like Anu rightly pointed out, that why did I pick this one? Because I feel we keep talking about, as adults especially, be yourself, don't worry, express yourself. But as soon as, our child starts to have a voice and opinion of their own, we're like, no, 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 that's not what we do. Because, that opinion may differ from what I believe, because the child is a different being. So if my child is a different being with a different mind, with a different value, I may want to call it like that, how do you still say that, okay, be yourself? Because it's questioning me, or my value system. So,
Yeah. I mean, that's a really interesting question. And I think it's so true that all kids in a family are different. And if there are two people parenting together, some people are parenting on their own, some are parenting with their own parent, with a grandparent.
yeah,
Everyone comes to everything we do with their own lived experience and what's important to them.
yeah,
Um, when we talk about be yourself, it
yeah,
looks a little bit different probably when kids are younger and then as they grow older. The question you're asking is when kids are a little bit more developed and start formulating their own opinions and
yeah,
everything else. And I think when we talk about being yourself and being authentic instead of performative,
mhm,
what we really want is for kids to not feel the pressure of, well, that kid is doing that, so I have to do that. Or that family, my friends are participating in sports, and so I have to be in
I have to
sports.
do that. Yeah,
That kind of that my friends all are working really hard and really good in school. I have to be really good in school. Some of these things we sort of leave to just kids figuring it out rather
mhm,
than talking about it. And so when kids are young and you think about them being themselves, it's like if they want to wear clothes that don't match, wear clothes that don't match. That's okay. If
mm,
you want to, if all your friends like this kind of music, but you like that kind of music, that's great.
Yeah.
enjoy your kind of music and teach your friends about it. So it's really in many cases when the kids are young about teaching them to be who they are and express who they are so that as they get older, they have the confidence to be who they are and express who they are. And the question you ask about, when their value is different from yours, I mean, look, these fundamentals are not for the weak of heart. It's not, these aren't for families who are like, this is what I want my kids to do. This
Yes.
is about here's how we as a family interact with one another.
Hmm.
And so it's being curious about your own children. And instead of trying to get them to be little mini versions of you,
Yeah.
you let them be
Their own
versions
people,
of themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would also add that I think one of the things about be yourself is helping your kids learn to hear their own inner voice.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so oftentimes kids get so much voice from adults. You're supposed to do this, you're supposed to be this way, you're supposed to that one of the key, I think, elements of helping a kid be themselves is helping a kid actually know themselves and
Wow. Yeah.
attention to what's inside of them. And so when a kid says, I kind of like this, to say, no, you shouldn't like that, you should like this. Oftentimes adults will correct kids away from
Yeah.
what's inside of them. And a big part of being yourself is helping your kid know themselves and hear themselves and be really connected. I was really thinking about the Olympics, which just happened, and Alyssa Liu, the figure skater, who was one of the best figure skaters in the world.
Yeah.
And at 60 years old, she walked away from figure skating. And the reason was because her whole life was just adults telling her what to do.
What to do.
And she
Yeah.
said, I want to figure out who I am. And
Mm.
she spent 2.5 years away from figure skating, just learning about herself and making friends and understanding herself. And after 2.5 years, guess what? She decided, I think I want to do figure skating again. But this time, I want to do it my way.
My way.
I
Yeah.
want to do the choreography. I
Yeah.
want to choose the costumes. I want to make it an expression of my own creativity.
Right.
And that against all odds, she came back and became not only a great skater again, but a gold medalist skater.
Right.
And she
Yeah.
did it joyfully and with freely and peacefully and happily, not under a ton of pressure because she wasn't trying to please everyone else. She
Right.
was just
Yeah.
expressing herself. And it was
And you
a
could feel it, couldn't you? When you
Quickly.
watched her
Yeah.
skate,
And
it was like, oh,
yeah.
you,
And God bless her, she recognized it at a young age. Most people recognize it at 50. Oh my God, where is my voice?
right?
You know? So,
That's right.
yeah.
So I was, talking about the fear in parents that makes them behave the way they do, right? And I'm talking as a parent of adult children. When I see them, struggling sometimes, even as adults, they have children of their own, and but I see them struggling, especially in their careers, the careers they have chosen, the line of studies that they have chosen, and I sometimes think, was it too much independence that I gave them? Can that be the other extreme also? So, I would like to hear about that, that fear that as a parent sometimes come up.
I,
Go ahead. No,
I
go.
think I think it's really challenging as parents because we oftentimes have clear ideas about how we want our kids to be. Nancy and I both have adult children also. And I still sometimes notice myself giving my kids advice, and sometimes they take it, sometimes they don't. And
Yeah.
and when they don't, I'm reminded that like these are grown adults. When I was a grown adult, if my parents gave me advice, I listened respectfully and sometimes I accepted it, but sometimes I thought, no, that's not that's not my choice. And so I do think there's that interesting thing that happens as your kids get older when they do stake their own course and we have to, as parents, I think, raise our kids with solid enough core fundamental values that they're about, and then trust them to go their own direction. And I can assure you that Alyssa Liu's dad, when she said she didn't want to skate anymore, was like, "What are you talking about? You're one of the best skaters in the world. How could you not skate?" But he had to give her the space to find her own way.
Find the
And
wrong way. Yeah.
Well, and one
Yes.
thing I'm gonna throw in there when you talked about different family members being different. Stephen and I happen to have had the same parents, and he's what he said is super interesting to me because what he said is, my parents gave me advice and sometimes I took it and sometimes I didn't.
Mm.
My parents would give me advice, and I'm like, I need to do what my parents say. So
Wow.
Stephen and I were really different in terms of he was a much freer thinker and had the ability to to know himself better, I think, than my disposition allowed me to know myself. I'm the 50-year-old Shika who's like, not, well, I wish I was 50, but I'm the 50-something-year-old. But when I was 50, the person who was like, boy, how do I figure out what I want for myself
Right,
and not
right.
what I'm trying to do to to meet norms, either things that
Yeah,
are expected of me in work or in family or in anything. How do I
right.
find that place? So there's an example,
Yeah.
I think, of the
I mean,
different ways kids take in things.
yeah, I mean, I have an older brother. So my older brother is like, at least this is what my mom thinks, whether it is true or not. But she's like, whatever I say, he does it. And with me, it's like, whatever I tell her, she will not do it. And I'm like, you know, more like Stephen, like you mentioned, I will have my own rationale, have my own story for it, have my own, and that feeling or that inner voice, if you want to call it, that would be so strong that I cannot go against that grain. That no, this is what I have to do, and it has gotten me into problems. It's not like, it's a smooth sail. But then, like the example of the figure skater that we were just talking, I own it. I own the troughs and the crests and everything. So okay, so now moving on. So now we've spoken of how, we know we want to value the our children being themselves, and we also identified how, people can or families can have different varying opinions and thoughts about it. But then, how do I ensure that I am bringing up a child? Give me five, let's say, or hacks that if I do these five things or four things, I am giving my child the space to be who they are. So, or what I shouldn't do, either which way. You can take the question either which way.
Yeah, I think, some should do's are listen and pay attention to your child.
Mm-hmm.
When you notice them going a certain direction, instead of course correcting them all the time, go
Mm,
down the road with them when they're doing something interesting. And I think Nancy made a great point. Sometimes when they're young, it's small things like the kind of clothes they want to wear or the kind of things they want to play with. Maybe you have a boy that wants to play with a doll, and you're like, oh no, boys don't play with dolls. So we're
yeah,
telling the kid not what they
yeah.
shouldn't do, as opposed to saying, oh,
Mm.
that's like letting the kid do what they
Experience there. Mm.
experience. So I think a lot of it is giving kids space to do that and then protecting yourself against this impulse to try to steer your kid in the way that you want them to do. And I think we see that a lot as kids get older, where parents want their kids to do certain jobs or want them to pursue certain interests. Nancy and I just heard a poet speak yesterday, and she was an immigrant from Ghana, and her
Mhm.
her Ghanaian mother was like, "You can do anything you want as long as you're a doctor, a nurse, or a lawyer."
Yeah. Any of those three check boxes. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
She said, "I'm an artist, I'm a poet, I'm a creative," and it
Yeah.
was hard for her mom to accept that. And
Yeah.
so sometimes it's the challenge of setting aside our own expectations and creating space for our kids to pursue what they're in love with and who they are, as opposed to what we expect them to be.
Well, and I would add to that is just being super curious about why they're doing what they're doing instead of telling them what to do or not to do. It's like, oh, that is such an interesting outfit you put on. Tell me how you picked it out. I love the color. Was it the colors? Was it you're asking questions that are curious and that give kids the opportunity to express themselves. And and instead of just like, oh, that doesn't match, go
Mm.
change, which is a very different experience than that outfit is wild. I want to hear the decisions you made to put it
Put
together.
it together. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a follow-up question, and this may be very contextual coming in from a country like India, where parents are worried, what job my child is going to pick up, is he going to earn enough, or is she will be able to sustain herself within the marriage, outside of the marriage, whatever. So the job choices are kind of based on the kind of life I want my child to have, or I think they should have. So therefore, the doctor, lawyer, those things get checked in. So but my child is saying, I want to be a poet, and you won't get money That's where the parent is coming from. So how will you earn the money to sustain a life? I mean, that's the bottom line, right? So what would you say to the parent there? How should they steer that conflict? Because it's huge. They can see the life of a child who will probably not have any means to sustain himself or herself.
Yeah.
So how do we navigate that?
Well, there's a lot of assumptions, I think, in all of that,
Yeah.
right? So one of the assumptions is that you know the kind of life your child is going to want to have.
Mm-hmm.
The assumption is they're going to want to have the same kind of life that you provided for them, and they
Yeah.
might not. They might not want to live in a house and raise up. They might want to, live a sort of a nomadic life for a little bit. They might want to try living in different cities, and they might want to experience the world in a really different way than you do. And so I think what happens when you start what happens, I think, Shika, even as you were saying, asking that question, I could feel the anxiety a little
Oh,
bit that you were
yeah.
feeling. And I think that's what kids feel. It's like
Mm.
you're telling me that I'm not going to be able to create a life for myself. But I can. I know what I want to do. And what I want might be really different from what you want. And so I think it's just really being careful and cautious
Right.
to be able to check your own self.
Mm.
Yeah, I had an interesting experience with this when we grew up in an upper middle class family. My father was a small business owner. And again, there was in our community the expectation that you would be a doctor or a lawyer or a business person. And after I graduated from college, I said, you know what? I really want to be a teacher. And a teacher makes a lot less money and has a lot less status. And but I knew that that was what my heart was calling me to do. And I remember having the conversation with my father, and my dad was unhappy in his work. It sustained our family very well, but he was unhappy doing the work he did. And my dad told me this, and I'll never forget it. He said, if you choose a job that will make a lot of money, but that you'll be unhappy with,
Mm.
then you'll be wealthy enough to afford to pay your psychiatrist.
Good
And
one.
I never forgot that. Like I chose a lower paying profession, but it was so gratifying and rich and enjoyable for me that the money didn't matter as much because I woke up every day doing something I felt was
Mm.
meaningful.
Yeah.
And my dad saw that, and I give him a lot of credit for seeing that.
Wow. Yeah. Anu, do you want to poke further?
It was taking me back to, yeah, my childhood, right? I am one of five siblings. So, and I was the quieter one, sort of. I think right from then it was okay. If mom is saying something, dad was the breadwinner, and he left it all to mom, to manage the family and the children. And it was a big family, large family setup. And I remember just maybe not with any conscious decision, but it always felt easy to go along with what mom said, right? And that's how it was till well into my adulthood. And then I realized that okay, I have a voice and I can make it heard. So it was well into my adult life that I realized that okay, I can do that. So, and since then I have been doing that. So yeah, exercising my choices. And
Yeah.
yeah, of course, while assuring that the rest of the family is well taken care of. As I said, my kids, I decided I wouldn't want to do that similar thing to my kids. But now, so in retrospect, I am. That's what I'm asking, Did I give them just too much independence? And are they, I don't know, maybe I have to ask them, are you happy doing what you're doing? Are you happy with in learning from the failures that are coming your way?
Yeah.
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 And
Yeah.
this question is a really interesting question because I know, Shika, another one of the fundamentals that you were interested in was bounce back.
Yeah. That's my next
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, and bounce back is about resilience, right?
Right.
Most all parents say they want to raise children who are resilient. And one thing we know for sure is that in life we're all going to have hardship. We're all going to struggle. There's going to be difficult times, no matter who we are or no matter how much we have, we will always have challenges. And
Right.
we all want to raise kids who, when they hit those challenges, will be resilient. They'll be able to bounce back. They'll be able
Right.
to show back up and be okay and come back stronger.
Right.
And so I think what you're talking about, Anu, a little bit is if we raise kids with resilience, and most of our families choose bounce back as one of their fundamentals because almost everybody wants
Yeah.
their kids to be ready to bounce back. So if we raise kids with bounce back, then they're going to be okay when they hit those hardships or when they struggle because their whole childhood, we've been practicing. Oh yeah, hardships are normal. This is how we bounce back. We have language. Oh, something bad happened. Time to bounce back. And
Yeah.
we're all like sort of ready to just come back when things get hard. And so I think that that's a really important fundamental to raise your kids with so that you don't have to worry so much about them experiencing hardship because hardship is just like an opportunity for them to show up stronger and to bounce back better.
Stephen, so you actually talked about my next fundamental that I wanted to address, resilience, how to bounce back. So we've already heard about, what you've spoken about in terms of how it's valuable and why we need to talk about it so much. But how do we get there? I know
Yeah.
she obviously, designed her way to a point where her children are doing it, but let's talk about the baby steps that we need to take.
I think our family culture is really all about baby steps. I like the way you said that because the way we've designed the system is not like, oh, this big heavy thing that we have to do, this our family. It's you choose your fundamentals. Stephen mentioned maybe like 15 or so between 15 and 20, maybe. And you choose your fundamentals, and that might sound like a lot, but the idea of the program is that you just practice one a week
Mm,
for it until you get through all 15 of them. And
mm,
then once you get through all 15 of them, you start over and
mm.
you do it again with different content. And
Yeah.
so and so it's really like a slow drip of it's not a sit down, we're gonna talk about bouncing back. It's we're gonna practice bouncing back. And we're not just gonna practice it 1 week a year. We're gonna probably practice it 3 different times every year.
Mm,
And the way we're gonna practice it is in small doses by maybe having a discussion question we talk about, or a short YouTube video we watch together and discuss, or a scenario we throw out, or and try to wrestle with as a family. Or my favorite type of question that we have is parent vulnerability questions.
oh,
And so it's a question, some of our questions are questions where parents are asked to think of a time where, let's say for bounce back, where they experienced a hardship and they didn't bounce back as they wish they would have,
yeah.
and lay that out for their kids and say, I wasn't really thrilled with how I handled this, and I'm curious to know what do you think I could have done differently? Right? That's a whole different conversation you're having with kids than how was school? Why'd you do that?
Yeah.
Right? And so that's a really important distinction I want to make.
Mm-hmm.
But when we talk about bouncing back, uh, I'm going to speak as a school counselor and what I noticed a lot of with parents and the way they teach or don't teach the idea of bouncing back. It was not uncommon. But the greatest gift I could see parents give to their kids is the ability to wrestle with struggle
Wow.
and to be a support during the
Mm,
struggle.
yeah.
I'm here. How can I help? But not, I'm here. I'm going to fix this for you. And
Yeah.
there's a huge difference between the two because when you're there as a support and you recognize that your child, even if your child's made a really bad decision that you know is going to get them in some trouble,
Mm,
you want to let your child take the consequences for that. And you don't want to diminish them for it. You want to use it as an opportunity to say, what did we, what if you were to go back and redo that whole situation, what would you do differently? Or have it as a family conversation that you discuss so that kids don't learn fear of making mistakes. They don't learn fear of not getting something right. They learn that, like, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to have hardship. I'm going to have hard things happen. And when I do, I'm going to have the tools and the support to be able to bounce back. And so
mm,
that's an incredibly powerful feeling
yeah.
for a child to have versus, I'll be really honest, like it was not uncommon if kids got in trouble
Yeah.
and in the district where I worked for a parent to come in and demand that we not consequence them per school policy or that or would bring in, sometimes even extremely, like bring in lawyers. And I'm not talking about for big things. I'm talking about for little things.
Yeah.
And so, when I read in the newspaper 10 years later, and this is not, I'm not making this up, this has happened, that
Mm.
the kid who vandalized, property on the Ohio State University's campus is the kid whose parent brought in the attorney. I just,
Yeah.
I'm like, of course, of course, because there was
Yeah.
no learning opportunity there.
Right.
Or the kid who had no, who got to shout out and be funny and be disrespectful to adults and do all these different things. Another true story, when I read and find out that he has been arrested for stealing cars and for doing drugs, I'm like, there was no container around that child. There was no safety of when I do something I shouldn't do, I then have to figure out how to bounce back from it. It
Yeah.
was, you can do no wrong. And
Mm.
as your parent, I'm going to make sure that you don't experience consequences. It's not a healthy way to raise a child. And I think for us, it's like not a lot of people think about this stuff and really are taught this. And so if we do it in a way that's so positive and easy to practice, such that parents are like, yes, that's so true. It is important.
Yeah.
I do want my kids to be able to bounce back.
Yeah.
Then we go back to the word intention. Then you're intentionally living that way as a
Yeah.
family.
Right.
But I have a question, Nancy. Yeah, so that, I mean, because I understand about, like, rushing to fix is an issue. We need to, let them learn and then they will bounce back. But in the interim, the emotions that the parent goes through,
Yes.
watching the child struggle,
Yes.
right? The rushing to fix is it's almost it's a reaction, right,
Yeah.
to the emotions they are facing. And I'm thinking from what you're saying that the program helps parents deal with their emotions too, right? It's difficult to watch your child struggle. Even a small homework struggle is a struggle for a parent.
Right.
So yeah,
I think,
so
yeah, I think
how
that's
do we deal with those emotions?
yeah, I think that's a really important point because what we witness a lot and I don't know how prevalent this is in India, but certainly in the United States, it's very common. What we have termed or phrased the snowplow parent, which is the parent who gets ahead of the kid and clears the path for them so that they won't have any obstacles or won't have any hardships. And the reason that we do that is because we fear our kids are going to struggle and we don't want our kids to struggle. It's done out of love. It's an act of love.
Yeah. Right.
What we're trying to help parents realize who are practicing bounce back is that that's actually in some ways harming our kids because
Right.
struggle is like a practice for our kids. If we don't it's like we put training wheels on our kids' bicycle so they can try riding and they won't hurt themselves too much if they fall and they can practice. And I think letting kids have small struggles when they're young teaches them the skills of resilience and how to bounce back. So when they have bigger struggles when they're older, they can handle them. So
Mm.
I think a lot of this is reframing for parents. And so if you choose bounce back and you're practicing resilience, you almost want your kids to have opportunities to struggle because then they can practice bouncing back.
Mm.
If you're not doing this with intention, then every struggle is perceived as something's wrong and that
Right.
you're worried about and you're concerned about. So it's like, when you watch that short video that we send out about Michael Jordan, who got cut from his basketball team when he was a sophomore in high school. Oh, that's the worst thing that ever happened. Michael Jordan got cut from his basketball team. No, it was the best thing that ever happened because
Mm.
it gave him the determination and the commitment to like, I'm going to practice harder. I'm going to get better. And he went on to be the greatest maybe who ever played the game. And
Right.
so that was a gift. That cut from the basketball team was a great gift to Michael Jordan. And similarly, we need our kids to have the gift of like struggle so they can build this internal fortitude, this toughness that will lead them to be better and to do better and to bounce back when things get difficult. So this is a reframing
Yeah.
that this helps parents do.
I have a follow-up question there, Stephen. So I get it, that don't rush to fix it. Let them sort of figure it out. And the snowplow example that you get, very, very valid. But again, as a parent of a young child, I'm wondering that is there a time frame? I mean, for example, I am struggling with my child not picking up on her studies, like being independent about it, or about her work, or what needs to go to school or something. And I'm like, okay, you know what? You're old enough. Your teacher is telling you, you go figure it out. And she fumbles, she struggles for a little bit. How long do I keep waiting for the thing to dawn in their head? Oh, I got to figure this out on my own now. She's not going to help me. Because
You
there are
know,
children who take longer to,
there are. There
uh,
are, but
yeah.
I invite you to think about that, Shika, as an invitation that you
Mm-hmm.
give to your daughter. And the invitation is, look, I notice that it takes you a long time to get your work done and you're not following up.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that I have concerns about it, but how old is your daughter?
10.
But you're 10, and I'm going to give you a chance to try what you want to try to get this done. And I'm here to help you, but I want you to ask me, like if you need my help, I'd love to help you, but I don't want to tell you how to do things because you need to figure it out. That's another one of our fundamentals, figure it out.
Figure it
And
out. Yeah.
you need to figure it out. And so I'm here and I will help you, but I'm not going to step in and intervene every step of the way. And then that way, she knows you're available
Mm-hmm.
to help her, but she can try it on her own. And if she doesn't like, I mean, goodness, she's 10. The stakes are low.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It's the perfect time to practice.
Practice.
The
Yes.
perfect time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in middle school, it's really funny. In middle school, I had kids who were so uptight about grades. Like they would get so upset if they didn't get an A. I mean, it was like a disease in the
Oh my
district where I
God.
worked.
Yeah.
Like you had
Yeah.
to, if they didn't get an A, if they didn't get all, they were so upset.
Mm.
And the number of times I had conversations with kids where I looked at them and I'm like, who do you think is ever going to ask you about your middle school grades in your life?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, this is this is practice. Like
Yeah.
this, I'm gonna tell you a big secret that none of the adults tell you, but I'm gonna tell you. It
Nobody's going
doesn't
to
matter.
ask you.
This doesn't matter, right? This doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This is all practice. It's all an opportunity for you to practice and to learn how to build some skills. And so, if we were in high school and earning credits, that's different. It matters a little bit. But
Yeah.
middle school, this doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What matters is you're learning how to handle the hardships and learning how to bounce back. And if you
Right.
don't, look, I was one of those kids, but
Mm.
it was my own internal struggle. If I
Yeah.
didn't get an A, I felt like I wasn't enough. Well, how do we
Right.
make sure our kids know that they're enough, that their grades don't determine who they are? So you can see how we go down a lot of different.
Right. So, in the interest of, I'm playing the devil's advocate, let's say there's a child who hasn't picked up, whatever that skill may be. Uh, is there a clue to the parent that, okay, you know what? Now my child is actually going down and not picking up, losing commitment, losing motivation, losing that encouragement. What are those signs that, okay, now I need to step up and, rescue my child? Or,
Mhm.
you know, because it may be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, the child is figuring it out and they're doing okay. They're not doing great. They're not reaching their potential. So when do I, rescue my child? Or I don't rescue, let them.
Well, I think one clear indication is safety. If your child isn't safe, you have to intervene. So there are times where, so for example, if your child is experimenting with addictive drugs, you're not like, oh,
Mm.
let them figure it out. It's like, no, they're going to get addicted.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have to jump in areas of safety.
Right.
Um, but I think sometimes it is accepting that they may take a different path. You might think like my child's not performing academically and it's going to limit their thing. And it may be like, well, they may, in the United States, for example, they may be a child who like doesn't get into a highly selective college. But that doesn't mean they can't have a successful future. It just means that they're not going to be in a highly selective college, or maybe they're going to start at a community college. I mean, there's all different kinds of paths people take. And so I think a lot of it is giving our kid permission to say, like, my path might not be the exact path that you
Exact
have in
path.
mind. It's going to
And
be a slightly,
maybe trusting our children a little bit more, like
Yeah.
they'll figure it out. I
yeah.
think it's also parental fear that, no, this child is doomed. This one's not going anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, okay, great.
Yeah,
Um,
and really we're not. I think the idea that we're trying to propose is what our family culture is not about like helping people fix their family their parenting problems. That's not what we're about. What
but
we're about is
amazing.
just yes, it's about having it, having that vision of imagining what you want. You're done raising your family.
Yeah.
What would you like people to say, you know what? The Shapiro family, what we knew about them, and I'm going to use some examples. What we knew about the Shapiro family in our neighborhood is
Mm,
that their house was always open to everyone. If you
mm,
wanted to go over, if you needed a place to be, if you wanted someone to talk to, if you just needed somewhere to hang out, you could go over to the Shapiros and they were always welcoming. They were always, the door was even unlocked and you could just
yeah.
come on in and when you came in, you help yourself. What's ours is yours and you are just if you need something to drink, help yourself. If you need, that made Stephen and I not the greatest hosts. We're like, get it yourself.
Yeah. But
But
sometimes,
it's like who do you want your family to be? And
right,
how do you practice in small ways, day after day, month after month, year after year, so that it's not like, oh, we never taught our kids that. It's like we talked about that all the time as a family.
right. Yeah.
Right. One of the fundamentals in my home, and I think I give credit to my wife for this, was show respect. And so we always really taught our kids to show respect, especially to elders. But if you ask any of their teachers, oh, the Shapiro kids, they were such respectful, they were very polite and respectful kids.
Yeah.
And that was because we intentionally talked about showing
Eventually.
respect to elders, and then we practiced that in small ways. And
Yeah.
as a result, our family, our kids were all aligned with that core value. We were respectful to our elders, even if we didn't agree with them, even if we
Right.
didn't like what they were saying. We still
Right.
treated them with respect and appreciated what they were contributing to us. So, those are the things like that. If you practice these fundamentals over and over again,
Yeah.
your family will have like a fingerprint. Like this is what makes our family unique.
Yeah.
Uh, our family was like known as a family that showed up this way. One of our other fundamentals is called show up for others.
Yeah.
And families that show up for others, when somebody gets sick, you're the first one there with a meal for their family. When somebody's struggling, you're the one that shows up. When your elderly neighbor can't rake their leaves in the fall, you're the one that shows up and rakes their leaves for them.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, that family, they're the ones that always show up.
Yeah.
And that's how you create,
Yeah.
every sports team that wins a championship, they always talk about, oh, on our team, we are like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a clear culture. And the question is, what's your family's
What's the
culture?
family culture? Yeah.
Family.
Yeah. Yeah, like Nancy put it, it's something you do daily, month after month, week after week. So, right, get it. Thank you.
Yeah.
That you talk, what I'm reading here, what Stephen had shared, shared behavior based common language for the family.
Yes. Yeah. And Stephen referred to that when he was talking about bouncing back. The
Yeah.
the fundamentals, they're not all as action oriented as we'd like. We're going to work with our family culture community to like help us make these as action oriented as possible. But bounce back is really clear. If your family has that language of bouncing back, then you can just say how do we bounce back from this? And they know what that means.
Mm,
Or I mentioned stick with it. If someone's struggling with something and they want to quit, they want to give up, it's like, um, stick with it. How can you stick with it? What do you need to do to stick with it? And then make a decision about what's next. And so we try to really um, have the fundamentals be a language, a shared language with
right.
your family so that you can know what you're talking about when you're dealing with various situations.
So, Shika, there is this interesting fundamental listening generously that interests me a lot.
Yeah.
But listening generously, connection before correction.
Oh,
Should
huge.
we go there next?
Yeah, certainly. Because we're talking about,
Sure.
fixing our children, but we're not talking about connecting with them. So
Yeah.
what would you
Yeah.
say on that? Um,
We love listen generously. The families that choose listen generously, we're trying to create a culture in our family where we really pay attention to each other. And I think
mm,
one of the things very common is that people listen to respond. So, and this is true in families, it's true in workplaces, it's true on teams, where you're in a conversation and somebody's talking and you're thinking, what can I say?
Can
Or
I
how does this relate to me? Or how can I? And there isn't I used to teach my students this all the time. This is the secret to life. I'm going to tell your listeners, I'm giving you free secret to life. You want to be happy and successful. You want people to love you. Here's the secret.
listen?
Ask people questions about themselves.
Right,
People love to talk about themselves.
right.
And we are so rarely in situations where someone says, "Oh, Shika, that's interesting what you said about your daughter. Tell me more about that. I really want to know more about your." When people do that, they're like they feel so seen and
To
they feel
value.
so
Yeah,
known. And
right.
so we teach our children to listen generously, both by practicing listening to them and also teaching them to
Yeah,
listen to others. They're almost guaranteed to be popular and well loved in their world because people are like, oh, whenever I'm with Anu, she always just really hears me. She really
yeah.
learning to listen generously is an incredible gift that we can give our kids if we build that into our family culture.
And I guess, we there is this tagline to it: connection before correction. It kind of, helps you if you're listening to your children and they feel seen and heard and valued. They're more likely to sort of take your advice if we may want to give it. So I think it might help in that correcting whatever behavior or some obstacles we might be looking at. Right.
No, I think that's really true.
I
And I
think
think
it's all
kids,
about,
kids often
I'm sorry.
rebel against the parents who are always telling them what to do because they feel like you're not listening to me. This is a classic parent kid fight. You're not listening to me. You didn't, kids feel it's very difficult to be in a relationship where you feel like an adult is telling you what to do all the time,
True.
but not hearing you. So
Right.
I think listening to our kids and teaching them to listen to others is really powerful.
We lean heavily on the James Baldwin quote that children have never been very good at listening to their elders, but they have never failed to imitate them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a lot of this too, is it just about who we are and how we are with one another, um,
Yeah.
so that kids can learn. That's how kids learn. And when Stephen and I started this process of, what could we give to the world as like our passion project after retirement? What could
Mm,
we provide to help make the world a better place, one family at a time?
Uh, the the James Baldwin quote reminds us
mm,
that our kids are watching us.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's not just what we say, but it's what we do.
Yeah.
And one of the powerful things about our family culture is it's not just that we're trying to tell our kids to behave a certain way, but we're actually helping parents be more intentional about behaving in the ways of those fundamentals as well. So kids can see us listening generously. So kids can see us
Yeah.
bouncing back. So people
Right.
can see us, our kids can see us showing up for others, or
Yeah.
see us practicing kindness, or see us doing the right thing. And
Yeah.
so a lot what our family culture does is not just fix kids, but is actually help parents clarify what's important to
What
them
is
and
it?
practice those things in ways that serve as a role model for their
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah. It's so true. I mean, I joke about this to my mother that, you kept yelling all your life, telling me to do X, Y, Z. And what I've gone ahead and done is what my father would do, but never talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, what was the point of you yelling for 20, 30 years? I have not
That's such a
learned a
good
thing
example.
there, you know?
Good example.
Yeah, but I mean, this notebook, this is my dad, always on the table with a pen and paper open. Even in the middle of the night, he'll call us if he's sleeping. Okay, open the page, make a note there. I have to do this tomorrow. And now I'm doing the same to my daughter. If I'm lying down, it's okay, open it, write the date, and say that I have to do this tomorrow. Never told us actively that this is what you should do to manage your time and tasks. But there we are.
Yeah.
So
One of the things that I love the most about our family culture is that people think they're signing up to make their kids better, and that will happen, and that is part
yeah,
of what happens.
yeah,
But there's two other things that happen. One is they make themselves better
yeah,
because they have clarity about their fundamentals and they live
exactly.
them out. And the second thing is they make their marriage better because if
Oh,
you're doing it with a
wow.
parenting partner, you and your partner are now talking about what's important to you. You're more in a conversation about your values. And so as a
Mm,
result, instead of fighting about differences in your values, you're
there's a
actually
common ground. Mm.
engaging them, yeah, have a great conversation. So it's really it's one of the lovely side effects that people show up for their kids, but end up
Showing up for themselves,
walking away with some other real benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll throw out the caveat that there are a lot of people who, like me, sort of were single parents
Hmm.
raising kids,
Yeah.
and it it that still rings true if you're a single parent, is that you get the opportunity to really talk with the people who are closest to you and about these things and get their feedback, or even just internally have that dialogue with yourself. One of the things we really, when we started, was like one of the, regret is a difficult emotion to live with.
Mm.
And what we want, parenting is the greatest, most important job you'll ever do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, how do we support families in leading lives where they can be really proud of how they work together as a family? They're not always going to get it right. This is
Yeah.
not about getting it right. I'll go back to that from the beginning. It's not
Yeah.
about getting it right, but it's about how can we do our very best with intention and with clarity about where we're headed.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's such a gift
Yeah.
to families. And so we really wanted to focus on how we provide parents that opportunity. And what we always say is, we wish this was something that was around when we were raising kids. Like, we did a pretty good job. We made mistakes all like any other parent, but it's like we're kind of building a program that we
Yeah.
want to be available to our children when they have children.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm so glad you brought this up about, because families are different. There are families with single parents, multi-generational families also,
Yeah.
all living together. Especially in India, that happens a lot, and value systems could clash because I think differently. I have a joke there also. My mother used to say, I'm never going to bring up your child. And the reason is that I'm going to do it by the book. And she's like, I
Yeah.
don't read a book and bring up children. I do it my way. So I was like, okay, don't come near my daughter. But yeah, there are those cultural gaps also. So it I get what you're saying. It helps everybody align to one single platform. That okay, this is what we are trying to raise within our family, and for the child.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
It's all about being emotionally connected and stay connected emotionally,
Yeah.
right? Be
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
whichever generation you belong to.
Absolutely.
That one quote I have seen on Stephen and Nancy's website.
Mm.
You get only one chance to raise amazing kids. That sort of has stuck with
It
me.
hits you. Yeah.
Yeah, it hits us. Yeah, so we constant questioning. Did we do that right?
Yeah.
No, I have sought to get feedback from my children
Yeah. Yeah.
on my parenting. You know what they have experienced. How they have
Right.
experienced me as their parent. But my daughter tells me it's all water under the bridge, ma. So let it be.
Uh, well, that's where you learn a little bit about each kid when you ask for that feedback,
Right.
and it is a powerful exercise to do,
Yeah.
and it can be painful
Yeah.
because you want your
Yeah,
kids to be honest, and it almost gives you an opportunity to have a conversation and do some repair. You know,
Yeah.
I trust me. I raised a child on the autism spectrum who had some comorbidities of mental health issues, and I'm a school counselor, and I didn't always do it well. There
Yeah.
were times where I just lost it because
Yeah.
he was like, where it was like, if I could go back and redo that, I would,
Yeah.
but I can't. Instead, and he remembers things. So when we talk about those things, if that ever pops up, I always say to him, you know what, Jacob, I didn't handle that the way I wish I would
Yeah.
have. Here's what if I could go back and redo it, here's what I think I would do. What do
Yeah.
you think? What do you think I could have done, or
Yeah.
what would have been helpful for you? It is water under the bridge, but you
Right.
can still enjoy, look at the water, and you can still talk about the
Yeah.
water, and you can still, make peace with
Yeah.
with
yeah,
what you're
exactly.
seeing.
Yeah, that will be so helpful, right?
Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah.
No, and that repair, I'm a huge fan of repair because I rupture every now and then. So, I need to repair every now and then. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the bond that it creates, and I'm thinking, in my head, that it is also establishing how you repair in your other relationships. It's not just with me, you know.
Yes.
You grow up to be a young girl, to be a wife, a mother, and whatnot, and so you would need to know how to repair relationships.
And I think, to your quote, Anu, this is the power when our system is designed to help parents have these really rich conversation with their kids, even in small doses, in these small ways.
Yeah.
But you can hear, even just from our conversation, families that are engaged in these kind of conversations are going to raise much more emotionally intelligent kids, kids who have clarity and strength in what they stand for and
Right.
conviction, kids who show up in the world in a purposeful and intentional way. And we get one chance to raise our kids, and our approach to this is let's help parents do it as best you can in as thoughtful a way as you can, so you don't look back and go like, oh, why didn't we should have talked about that, I wish we
Yeah.
had. This is like, here we are for we're keeping the price of the app very low, so it's affordable to most people, and it's
Mm.
like for a small amount of money we can actually create healthy conversations and
Yeah.
raise kids who make us proud. Goal is, not to build a huge empire, but is to help as many people as we can. And so we've designed our family culture that way to be simple, safe, easy, and affordable for families to say, sure, let me try this. And just
Yeah.
notice the way that your family improves.
Right. Yeah. No, that's on that note, would you like to talk a little bit more about the app and how to get it so that, it will help our viewers? Uh,
Sure. So
yeah.
the Our Family Culture system is all delivered through a mobile app. And
Mm-hmm.
so whether on your iPhone or your Android phone, you can just search for the Our Family Culture app in the App Store. You
Yeah.
download the app. We have a subscription, and the subscription is priced affordably. We hope that most people will find it to be a small cost that they can handle. And once you sign up for the app, you go through a process of first identifying what are your family fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll get a list of family fundamentals. And if you're
Right.
parenting with a partner or by yourself, you'll go through those and say, what's really important to us? So there's this really wonderful starting point where you actually start thinking about what do we care about? What's
Mm-hmm.
important? Once you choose your family fundamentals, then every Sunday you'll get a new fundamental to focus on for that week. So let's say that it's bounce back week. On Sunday, you'll get bounce back with the description. And then you'll get 5 things for the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that are just small things that you can practice with your family. So it might be a discussion question on Monday. It might be a short little 2-minute video that you can watch on YouTube on Tuesday. And it might be, a scenario or a quote. And what we encourage families to do is maybe write the fundamental somewhere in your house, like have a board somewhere where like bounce back. This week is bounce back week. And then these small conversations, they might happen when you're having a meal. They might happen when you're taking your kid to school. They're just little things. But and then the next week on Sunday, a new one comes and you go through let's say you have 18 of them. On the 19th week, you go back to the first one. And this, in these small little ways, the families are practicing these fundamentals over and over again. They're developing the language, they're establishing clarity within their family. And over time, after months of doing this and years of doing this, it's like, oh, we talk about that all the time in our family. We're the Shapiros. We bounce
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Oh, we're Shapiros. We show up for others.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, that's just who we are. And that's what culture is. It's this very slow process of developing things that just show up ultimately as like obvious. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course we do the right thing. We talk about do the right thing at our house all the time.
All the right. So
There's
we
a
do 15 for the first 15 weeks, or we do 15 for an year, let's say. How does it work?
So it's one per week, and
Okay.
then you go through say you have 15, you go through all 15. On
Mm-hmm.
week 16, you're back to number one.
But I
But
can
but
change that. Okay, I'm done with this. I want to sign up for the
You
new one.
can, but I don't think that's what it's designed to do. You can
Okay.
change fundamentals, but the idea is you pick your fundamentals. They are your family's fundamentals. And so you practice those
Okay.
same fundamentals over and over
Over
and
and over
over.
again. Understood.
Because I mean, think about how kids learn. Think about how adults learn.
Yeah.
We only learn through repetition
Repetition.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
exposure.
Yeah.
And so if you have that repeated exposure to opportunities to
Mm.
discuss and watch videos and do activities that are based around your family's fundamentals, then you know what they are. So the reason, and there's of course the ability to change in case you're like, you know what, that one's not working. We really would rather practice this one.
Something else. Yeah.
But the idea is that if you do that over and over year after year, then there will come a time where you'll be like, I don't need this. I don't, like this just is what we do.
Yeah.
We know how to do this. Like it's you don't know until you stand up in front of a classroom of kids and try to teach. You don't know how challenging it is to be able to ask really good questions.
Right.
And how to be able to elicit responses from people. And so in our teachery ways, Stephen and I both are trying to support parents in having ways to talk with your kids that are so different from the, how'd you do on your test? How was school? Who'd you eat with today? Those kind of things that without really knowing it, make kids feel like your parents are only interested in a couple little bits of feedback of like the who and the what, and not the who am I.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nancy and Stephen, for this extremely enriching and a conversation which has forced me to think a little bit more about how I'm doing as a parent. And I'll open the floor to all of you for any closing comments, any closing thoughts you might have. So over to you.
Yeah, I just want to thank both of you for being curious enough to have us on your podcast and to learn a little bit about our family culture and the work that we're doing. Part of what drew us together was our interest and curiosity in each other's work. And so we are very grateful to you for listening generously to what we're up to, and for sharing our work with all your listeners.
I agree with Nancy. We thank you for the opportunity, and for anyone who's listening, we encourage you jump on the app, play with it for a little, see what you see. We're pretty convinced that folks who use this app are going to find a tremendous value in terms of not only clarity about what's important to them, but just deeper and richer connection to their family and to their kids. So we're excited to have impact around the world, and so we're really appreciative of this opportunity to connect with your audience in India.
Right. Yeah.
So our best wishes to you, Stephen and Nancy, for your app launch. And we are curious about the app. And yes, we will introduce the app to our listeners and to our families. I've talked about it to my daughter. So it's a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you for sharing all that wisdom. So if this conversation resonated with you, follow and subscribe and spend a little time with us each month as we make sense of the shifts we are all navigating. Thank you.
Yep. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaste. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.